The Mesmer specialization, the Mirage, focuses on being a very deceptive combatant in close melee range.
They blend into basically whatever their surroundings are, camouflaging themselves so that you can't see them, and while they're doing this, they can strike at you from multiple directions.
The other interesting thing about the Mirage is that it has a different dodge mechanic. They have a blur effect that allows attacks to pass through them rather than them moving out of the way of the attack.
The idea that there are folks who now can manipulate the desert itself to kind of provide power to their illusions and phantasms, I think it's a really cool direction for the Mesmer to step in.
Such beauty, such grace. You're gonna die when I get in your face. Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video I will be briefly overviewing the new Mesmer Elite specialization, the Mirage. And once again I have yet to have hands-on experience with this Elite spec, so everything I say here doesn't have as much weight as if I were to have played it firsthand. So with that being said, let's get started. The official description for the Mirage reads, "Mirages move through battle like shifting sand, cloaking themselves rather than dodging attacks. Their graceful, swirling axes and prismatic mirrors are as deceptively beautiful as they are deadly." That little description is quite beautiful and apropos to the Mirage specialization. My initial impressions of the Mirage led me to believe that it was going to be more of a duelist type spec. And some of that may be true, but when I say duelist, I was thinking more of power. As I explained the skills, the weapon skills, utility skills, and the traits, you might see that it really isn't power. It instead seems to be more focused around condition damage, which I can somewhat agree with. Base Mesmer could have used a little bit more help in the condition department, even though their conditions are fairly strong to begin with. It's just that the specializations was really only limited to illusions and chaos, so having a third will help round it out. However, a part of me would still like a elite specialization geared more towards flat power. Mesmers are still kind of struggling to gain flat power, and some improvements have been making it into the game. Slow and steady wins the race, but still, maybe someday. But overall, I'm actually very excited for the Mirage, as most people are. Now, let's start getting into the nitty-gritty details of this spec. Sadly, I don't have the entire information on their weapons, utilities, and elites. However, I do have the traits and a couple of the weapon and utility skills. So I'm going to cover the weapon first. The weapon that the Mirage is getting is an axe, which is very interesting. I never would have imagined Mesmer to get an axe for the next elite spec, but wilder things have happened, and from the footage I have seen, it's looking pretty snazzy and fancy. So let's jump right into it, and we'll start with the auto attack. The auto attack is an attack chain, so we first have lacerating chop, then ethereal chop, and finally mirror strikes. Lacerating chop will do damage and inflict bleeding. Ethereal chop, the second one, will inflict torment as well as do flat damage. And mirror strikes, the very third and final chain in the auto attack, will inflict both bleeding and torment. Now, the second and the third skill for the axe, I have not been able to find the names or tooltips for, and I've searched for a while, and I have not managed to find them, though I do know what the animations are and pretty much what they do, just not the exact word for word detailed tooltip. I believe that the second ability has an ammunition charge for it, which means it can be casted multiple times in quick succession before it has to be set on a cooldown. And I believe the second skill is a leap, which leaves a clone behind at your location. And from what I've seen, I've noticed that players have used it twice, so that's why I have come to the conclusion that it has an ammunition mechanic. It's a clone generator, so you're going to be seeing more clones with Mirage. And for the third skill, it is actually being played in the trailer. You might notice that the clones, every active clone in the world, will jump to the target and smash them down. I don't believe it does any extra damage. It probably will. But it also generates a clone. So you have two sources of clone generation on the axe weapon. You have the second skill, which will leave behind a clone, and the third skill, which will also leave behind a clone. I don't know if those are affected by traits, but I will see very soon. I would also like to briefly mention that because I don't have the tooltips for the second and third skill, I don't know if they apply condition damage. I assume that they will, considering the condition direction that the Mirage is taking. So now we've covered the weapon skills, I'm gonna try to attempt to explain the utility skills. I've had to scavenge around on the internet to find a couple of the utility skills. I don't have them all, I only have a couple. But I will start with the healing skill, which is called False Oasis. And the description reads, create a mirage at your current location and heal over time. When the mirage expires, it summons a mirror. Now for the heal skill, you're going to be creating a mirage, which is the new dodge mechanic. Not necessarily dodge, but in its place, instead of dodging, you will shift in and out of reality and allow any attacks to pass right through you while standing still. Now it says heal over time, and from the tooltip that I saw, it was about 1.6k healing. It did not say how many ticks of healing it did. If it's only 3, you're only going to get about 3,000 healing for it. If it's something up to like 5 or 6, that's a bit more substantial. And keep in mind, you're also going to be getting a evasion frame while using this skill. And the final thing it does is it creates a Mirage Mirror. And I'm not actually sure what the Mirage Mirror does. I believe the Mirage Mirror acts is some type of new shatter. Don't quote me on that, but that is what I've just gotten from all the people talking, like from the trailers. It does appear to have some sort of shatter animation. What it does, I'm not exactly sure of, but it'll be very interesting to find out what it does. Moving on to the utilities, I have 3 confirmed utilities. The first one I'll be talking about is Crystal Shards. The description reads, draw in crystal shards that confuse enemies as they pass through on their way to their destination. And when they converge in their destination, they create a Mirage Mirror, another form of a mirror. So there seems to be a lot of mirror application. The next utility is Sand Through Glass. Is it sand? I'm not sure if it's sands or just sand through glass. I'm going to be going with sand through glass right now. So sand through glass reads, evade backwards and leave behind a Mirage Mirror. So instead of dodging, you don't completely lose a quote-unquote dodge. This utility skill does allow you to evade backwards, which is basically a dodge, and it will leave behind a Mirage Mirror. The third trait, or the third utility skill that I'm fairly sure is confirmed to be a utility skill, is the Mirage Mirror. Once again, I do not know what the Mirage Mirror does, but I think it's confirmed. And there is one questionable skill that I know of, and I've seen the tooltip for, but I'm not sure if it's a utility or an elite. To me, this seems more like a utility rather than an elite, just from what it does. But the skill I'm talking about is known as Jaunt. And Jaunt's description is fairly simple. It's you shadow step to a target location and you confuse enemies in an area that you shadow step to. Given the description, I don't think this is an elite, though the tooltip that I actually saw was further to the right, and it could have been like the 9th utility slot or the elite. I don't think this has enough flavor to be elite, so I think it's a utility. If it's an elite, I'm cool with it. But yeah, those are all the skills that I know of personally. So we're going to be moving on to the traits. Time for the trait section. So the first minor adept is known as Mirage Cloak. Gain Mirage Cloak instead of dodge rolling. Ambush skills become available for a short time whenever you gain Mirage Cloak. Gain access to deception skills. And that is a perfect caveat for me to take a couple steps backwards and explain the ambush skills on the axe. It's actually only one skill. So this skill is known as Imaginary Axes, and it reads, Release phantasmal axes that seek out the nearest target after a short delay. I do know of both the scepter and the staff ambush skills. I know the name for the scepter, but not the staff. The scepter is known as, or is rather called, Ethereal Barrage or Ether Barrage, one of the two. But it allows you to cast a flurry of ether bolts that will apply conditions to the enemy. And for the staff, it is actually viewable in the final shot of the Mirage trailer, where you spin around your staff and you shoot out a large orb that bounces to targets and also applies conditions. So that was the first and final minor adept. Already a lot to talk about. Moving on to the major adept traits. The first one is known as self-deception. Using a deception skill will create a clone if you have exactly 2 illusions active. So unlike the Chronomancer where it's you shatter and then create a clone, this is if you use a deception skill with 2 clones already active, you'll create a third. Second one is known as Renewing Oasis. Gain regeneration when Mirage Cloak is active. The duration of damaging conditions is reduced while you are regenerating. And the third and final one is known as Riddle of Sand. When entering combat, your first ambush attacks apply confusion. This ability refreshes when you use a shatter skill. Some more condition stuff, a little bit of survivability. Moving on to the minor master, it's known as Nomad's Endurance. Shatter skills give vigor, which grants condition damage. I'm a little confused with this. I'll probably get that clarified once I play it. What I'm getting for this is that for the Mirage, if you have vigor, you also gain increased condition damage. Interesting. Moving on to the major masters, all 3. The first one is Shards of Glass, and it reads, Shattered illusions have a chance of becoming Mirage Mirrors. Again, the Mirage Mirror thing, don't exactly know what it does. Second one is Mirage Mantle. Gain protection while Mirage Cloak ends, or when Mirage Cloak ends, excuse me. A little bit more survivability. And the third one is Mirrored Axes. Reduce recharge of axe skills, and axe skills generate an additional phantom axe. So a little bit more damage, in turn more condition damage, and reduce recharge. So it appears that in all 3 lines there is a survivability, something to do with clones, and something to do with your weapon, and just flat condition damage. The minor Grandmaster is Speed of Sand. Gain super speed when you gain Mirage Cloak. So you're also going to be getting some more super speed whenever you use your Mirage Cloak, which is your dodge. And for the 3 Grandmasters, the first one is Infinite Horizon. When you gain Mirage Cloak, the trait is also applied to all your illusions, which in turn gain the ambush mechanic. So you can do a lot of damage. It looks awesome. The second Grandmaster is Elusive Mind. Dodging breaks stun and removes conditions. It's probably more for PvP. And the third one is Dune Cloak. Use sand shards when you gain Mirage Cloak. Conditions applied to bleeding foes have increased duration. So that's a damaging one, a lot of condition damage. So those are the traits that are currently described to us. Nothing is set in stone. I'm not sure about the numbers. Some of the descriptions of the traits may change to add more flavor, but for right now, this is what we have. And that is the Mirage, a fierce combatant who loves to play with their clones and who loves to burst someone down with conditions. Hopefully. I'm really excited. The Mirage looks absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to play it hands-on when we get to play the Elite Specs. I'm going to continue my spree of creating these videos for the Elite Specs. And I'd also like to briefly mention, if you guys would like to pre-purchase Path of Fire, you can use my link or any other content creators' links. It definitely helps us out. Trust me, it does. Thank you for watching. Comment below what you think about the Mirage. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more Guild Wars 2 Path of Fire content. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Mwah.